So when he opened the door to let my dad into our home, all I could do was shake my head. This was an ambush. My dad's face said it all: concern, disappointment, the whole cocktail. I sat frozen. Anger and shame splattered all over me. My tears no longer fell one by one, but they streamed like lava. Donovan sat on the arm of the couch, elbows on his knees, locking eyes with me. He had me exactly how he liked to see me: afraid to speak, embarrassed, and raw. Despite this desperate attempt to keep me in check, he dared me to tell my dad something he knew I never could. This narcissistic asshole knew how much I respected my daddy. My need for his approval ran deeper than a current under my skin. No way I could look that man in the eyes and admit I'd married a serial cheater and accepted his infidelity. Not me. Not intelligent, headstrong angel. No way. No way I could look that man in his face and tell him I fell for the games, just like all women do. The three of us sat in the loudest silence I've ever known, each breath between us heavy with things unsaid. Donovan looked smug, like he just won some twisted game of emotional chess. I was mortified. And my dad, he was something worse: disappointed. It was the kind of disappointment that didn't come with yelling or questions, just a heavy, aching quiet that cut deeper than anything. He shifted forward, resting on the balls of his feet, elbows pressing into his knees, hands steepled, like he was solving a riddle only he could understand. I knew that pose well. Called it the philosopher. It always came right before he dropped a truth so profound it would pierce my pride, hold up a mirror, and somehow manage to love me all at once. I raised you, Angel. So I knew something was going on between you two when I saw him in your office a couple weeks ago, he said with a voice that was thick with emotion. You've always been the one who thought things through, the one whose moves made sense. I never had to worry about you. He paused, his voice cracking. But Angel, baby, I'm worried now. His hand reached for mine as tears filled his eyes. I couldn't describe what happened, but in the midst of this tender moment, something in me snapped. You should have been worried then, I spat at him. But the words had been waiting too long in the back of my throat. Something about my dad's expectations of perfection made me realize that both men in that room had broken my heart, just at different stages, and maybe even in different places. I never wanted to be the one you didn't worry about, Daddy. I was a kid. I needed love, attention, softness. The same shit my sisters got. He didn't flinch, just looked at me the way he always did when I peeled back a layer he wasn't ready for. Angel, you got what you needed. The rest were for the ones who couldn't figure it out like you did. I never fucking figured it out, Dad. My voice shattered the space between us. I married a fucking liar. And I let it happen. I stayed. And I let him use me. Just like I let you, Mom, and all my fucking sisters use me too. I said it. The moment I let the words fall out of my mouth, I felt my dad's disappointment, but I was liberated. I was happy I no longer had to carry it by myself. I could feel Donovan stiffen beside me, like the floor beneath him had cracked open. He shifted in his seat, suddenly uncertain, like the ground rules had changed, and he was just realizing he was out of his league. I want a fucking divorce. I spit it like a freestyle. Clean, cutting, no stutter. Like I was standing in the cipher, mic in hand, finally delivering the verse I'd been holding in for years. This wasn't just a line. It was a whole diss track aimed at the man who had made betrayal feel like a routine. I was Kendrick, in full control, flaming mics, calling out the bullshit with every syllable. And for once, I wasn't scared. I had waited so damn long to free myself from this lying, abusive, disrespectful man. And saying it out loud, was the first breath of air after drowning. I heard raised voices behind me, Donovan and my father arguing, but the words were blurred, like underwater noise. I couldn't bring myself to care. That moment was the first time I had raised my voice at my dad since I was grown. The volume wasn't intentional. Trauma had hijacked my vocal cords. I tried to hold it in, but the pain had its own agenda. And the second the words spilled out, I felt it, re traumatized. All these years, I let them all use me. I was everyone's center, but not one of them had made me theirs. I was orbiting my own life, watching from the outskirts, like a character who showed up late to their own story. My parents made me a third parent. It forced me to trade my childhood for responsibility and stripped me of the selfishness every child is owed. Peace becomes a rarity when your focus is always on everyone else's needs and issues, never your own. I never had time to put myself first or even pursue things that made me happy. I was too busy raising their kids. It got even worse when I married Donovan at the end of my teens. I went from being a parentified child to a real parent, and it interrupted my development as a woman, forcing me to learn lessons my mind wasn't ready to process. So even in love, I carried the same weight, meeting my partner's needs before my own, forsaking my needs for his, pretending it didn't sting when he wouldn't do the same for me. But Donovan had been the worst. He promised to love and cherish me, then turned into the warden of my self-worth. His betrayal wasn't just infidelity. It was control, oppression, all wrapped up in vows and sweet words that turned bitter in my mouth. I packed a bag of random clothing, skipping past the gold frame memories that once held tender moments. Moments that were far behind us now. I was no longer her, and he was no longer him. We had become strangers sharing a name, in a cold home where love felt more like a cold pair of metal handcuffs than a connection that bonded us. I tossed the frames in the trash and carefully stacked my clothes in a brown leather overnight bag. I was heading somewhere I could finally put myself at the center, a place that would welcome my jaded, broken soul, soothe the cracks with healing ointment, and allow me to exist as a whole individual, one worthy of love, one worthy of being chosen, one who no longer had to fight for peace or trade self-respect for bits of love, a place where the waves would lull me to sleep, the salt in the air would ease the unreachable aching, and the peach-colored sunsets would slowly help me forget the jagged wound left by a lover's cruel words. On to Monterey to start my new life. No rearview mirror needed. I drove for over 2.5 hours to get to my destination. A cozy condo I found on Airbnb fit for a queen. Floor to ceiling windows, gold accents, warm neutrals throughout, and gold vases filled with white roses. The fruit basket, topped with chocolate covered strawberries, ended up being my dinner as I buried myself under the covers. Monterey was my place of calm and stillness, but Donovan and I had so many dreams tied to this city. So while I celebrated the leap I took to accomplish a goal, I grieved the couple that once dreamed they'd build a life here. The young, naive version of us that believed love, or at least the feeling of it, would keep us together forever. And maybe it could have. Donovan would have never left me. But he also had no intention on being the love I needed. So I had to shut my heart up and leap right out of that toxic cycle of dysfunctional love and bottomless second chances. Because deep down, I yearned for a love that chose me proudly and loudly. I unpacked my overnight bag, which held only about 30% of the clothes I needed to stay presentable in a town like Monterey. I gave myself one day to mourn the end of my marriage, and by the next morning, I went to work on my to-do list. Took a while, but by the end of the month, I'd done it all. Found a permanent place to live, just miles from the kids' new school, hired a lawyer and officially filed for divorce, and got my dad to convince the partners to let me service the Monterey area. He must have felt guilty because he didn't even put up a fight. I even found a therapist, Dr. Brenda. She did not play. She held me accountable, but she also helped me label my trauma. She said it plainly. Donovan was mentally abusive, which was true. He guilted me into staying for years, told me if I left I wouldn't be blessed, said I'd reap karma tenfold for divorcing him over what he called a simple misunderstanding. He even pulled out the Bible. This man, who had never once used the scripture in our entire marriage, suddenly he was quoting them like he'd spent 50 years in the pulpit. He told me that if I married again, it wouldn't count, that God wouldn't honor it, that my first child with another man would suffer a slow death. I wish I was exaggerating. Before the no contact order was put in place, he tried every trick in the book. One night, he tried appealing to my softer side, promising he'd love me right this time. And I almost went back. I had the bags packed, the kids loaded in the car, but I couldn't do it. I kept seeing flashes, images of him and Connie together. While he was planning our anniversary, he was also making love to her, touching her, loving her. It wasn't a slip up. It was calculated, a deliberate betrayal. He wanted me to know how much he hated me, hated that I had my own mind, that my intelligence threatened his ego. And for a man like Donovan, that was damn near criminal. And I couldn't go back to being punished for being a woman with dreams, goals, and a mind of her own. So I unpacked my car and cried harder than I ever thought I could. Yes, he promised to love me right this time. But not loving me right the first time told me everything I needed to know. My time in Monterey proved to be promising and eventful. I had more clients than I ever did in San Francisco, tripled my yearly income, and even purchased a beautiful condo by the water. Dr. Brenda and I created a no-nonsense self-care plan, one that made my happiness and peace non-negotiable. Every day, no matter what, I made it home in time for my sunset bath, moisturizing ritual, and sunset journaling. We called it Sunset Self-Care. My oceanfront condo made it all more magical. Gold vases surrounding the floor-to-ceiling window, dressed in sheer white curtains. Through them, I could smell the salt water, hear the crashing waves, and taste the sandy breeze as I soaked in my warm bath and let go of whatever the day had pressed onto me. Donovan had been spiraling on social media. Same tactics, new audience. He was saying the exact things he used to text me, only now in public. We weren't even friends on Facebook anymore, so I guess he figured I wouldn't even see it. But my friends kept sending me screenshots of his weekly emotional rants. Conveniently, they always popped up right after I made a big move, like he had someone feeding him updates. But I didn't care. I was happy, finally, and I wasn't trading my peace for anything. It was the middle of my sunset self care time, the part where I moisturized my entire body and slipped into my mauve silk robe. Then my phone rings. It was Michael. It had been a while since we talked. We never officially ended things, we just drifted. Life pulled us in different directions. Me, dealing with Quasi's chaos. Him, raising his kids and working. I just couldn't bring myself to answer the phone. I had no desire for any kind of male attention. So I let the call go to voicemail and finished my routine. I still had some journaling to do before the sun dipped completely below the horizon. I had recently rented out an office, one I paid for from my own revenue, but having the freedom to work in the city of my dreams made every penny worth it. I started work every day at 6 a.m. Harmony and Huxley took the bus to and from school. I usually arrived home in time for a late lunch with them. Then I slipped into my sunset self care time. This particular morning, I walked into my office to the sound of renovation. Construction crews were working on the suite next door. In this part of Monterey, houses were repurposed into commercial spaces. It wasn't unusual to see a medical office next to a salon or a lawyer sharing the street with a boutique. I figured a new tenant was moving in and they were prepping the space. Then I saw a familiar car pull up. I kept working until I heard a knock at my door and saw them. Those muscular chocolate arms I once followed across the dance floor. Michael, what are you doing here? I asked, though my heart already knew. We hugged, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Something a divorcee probably shouldn't be feeling. He held me close, his hand resting gently at the small of my back before pulling away. He still smelled like that sweet, warm whiskey scent I remembered. I didn't get that metallic scent with a hint of bergamot like I had with Kwasi or Donovan. No fractured soul trying to cut the remnants of my own. No broken men held together with ego, just warmth, friendliness, and openness. How have you been? He asked. Pretty good, I replied. I'm sorry I didn't answer your call last week. I've just been in not the best place lately. I get it, he said gently. Cat's out of the bag now, he chuckled. I wanted to tell you I was moving out here, but, well, here I am. This is crazy, I said, my heart doing something I hadn't felt in a long time. I know, he laughed. It's been a dream of mine to move here since I was a kid. Mine too, I said, wondering if I had ever told him that back when we first started talking. This felt like more than a coincidence, and I don't even believe in coincidences. We talked for what felt like forever. He had moved his kids, his mom, and his practice here after receiving a grant from a San Francisco hospital aimed at helping minority physicians open clinics in affluent cities. I was so proud of him. Michael had been through it. Lost his father early, bounced from house to house, joined the army, got his life on track only to watch his mom battle cancer. She survived, thankfully. But all of that happened during the most fragile time of his life, his first year of marriage and fatherhood. And then he lost the love of his life, but he kept going, worked, provided, stayed celibate. He did the work, dug himself out of grief's grave, and I admired that because here I was, still in the middle of my own freshly dug hole, and I couldn't see an escape route in sight. Over the next few weeks, Michael and I saw each other often, not intentionally. Monterey was smaller than it looked on a map. He'd wave when we passed each other in the parking lot. Sometimes he'd bring coffee and leave it outside my office door with a sticky note that said, "Just making sure you're taking care of you too." He never asked for time. He offered presents. There was one morning I came in late, frazzled from a call with Harmony School, and found a warm croissant and chamomile tea waiting on my desk. I didn't tell him my favorite tea was chamomile, but somehow he remembered. That day, I broke my rule and invited him in. We talked over breakfast about our kids, our work, how Monterey felt like a second chance neither of us planned for. I like who I am here, I admitted. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. "You look like you like yourself here," he replied softly. "And I've always liked you wherever you were." I froze, not in fear, in unfamiliarity. Men from my past loved the version of me that needed fixing, or saving, or silencing. Michael spoke like he saw me, not just the version I pulled together after heartbreak, but the parts I was still rebuilding in private. Later that evening, during self-care time, I sat in the bath with the ocean breeze slipping through the cracked window. My journal stayed closed. Instead, I lay still, replaying Michael's voice in my head, the gentle way he said my name, the respectful pause in his gaze when our eyes met. This time, there was no pressure to perform healing. He let me be a woman in progress, and that felt like something new. The weeks that followed were quiet and gentle, two things I didn't know I needed. Michael and I created a rhythm, one built on consistency, not intensity. We met up after work for quick meals or beach walks. We shared playlists, traded books, swapped stories of our worst clients, our childhoods, and the ways we survived them. He never tried to fill the silence. He let it sit with us like a guest at the table. It was strange, new, but safe. One evening, I caught myself smiling at my phone because of a meme he sent of a dog wearing glasses with the caption, "Me pretending to be emotionally unavailable." I snorted in the middle of the checkout lane at Trader Joe's. The woman behind me asked if I was okay. I wasn't sure how to answer. Another night, he brought Huxley a vintage comic book set and showed Harmony how to make her fancy ramen with just eggs and sesame oil. Watching him laugh with them, watching my kids light up around someone who didn't expect anything from them, it started chipping away at something in me. I didn't know what to do with the man who didn't want to take anything, just be near, be present. I started waking up earlier to do my hair, just in case I saw him in the hallway. I wore the perfume I hadn't touched since my last real date. I even found myself humming again. That scared me because it meant I was feeling something real, and real things break. It was his idea to drive to the coast for a late lunch and watch the sunset. I found this spot, he said, handing me a coffee and pointing to a quiet trail near Bodega Bay. It looks like it was made for people who've been through too much but still want to believe in something. I smirked. So, like us. Exactly. He grinned. We hiked a little, nothing too intense, and then sat on a blanket he'd thrown in the back of his car. Roasted veggie sandwiches, lemonade, and fruit. The kind of meal you don't rush through. The sky stretched wide and endless over the cliffs, the horizon bleeding into soft fire. Peach, coral, lilac. He laid back with his hands behind his head, eyes closed. You ever notice how sunsets kind of feel like God apologizing for the day? I laughed. If that's true, I think today's apology is sincere. We watched in silence for a while. At one point, I leaned into him, just enough for our shoulders to touch. He didn't move. Neither did I. You're easy to be around, I said quietly. You're easy to like, he replied. I turned my head to look at him. He was already watching me. The wind tugged the strand of my hair into my face, and without thinking, he reached up and tucked it behind my ear. His hand lingered. We held eye contact too long. He leaned in just a little, barely an inch between us, and I panicked. I cleared my throat and looked away. We should head back before the bugs come. He nodded, giving me a moment, giving me space. Yeah, but if I get eaten alive out here for you, I want that noted in your journal. Later that night, as I laid in bed, wrapped in a robe that still smelled faintly like the ocean breeze, I wondered why it felt safer to be near Michael than to fall for him. I wasn't ready, but I was starting to want to be. It was a Thursday night. The kids were staying with my sister for the weekend, and I had just finished folding laundry, prepping for a long bath and an even longer journal session. A knock at the door. I assumed it was a neighbor, but when I opened it, there he was, Donovan, hood on, beard fuller, eyes swollen from crying or from guilt. I didn't know. What are you doing here? I asked, already feeling the tremble in my voice. I needed to see you, he said. I had to. I can't sleep. I can't think. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face. You were right about me, about everything. He took a shaky breath. I want to be the man you deserve. I swear to God, I've changed. I've been seeing a therapist. I've been sober. Donovan. He stepped forward slowly. I still love you. I looked down at my 7-month pregnant belly and tugged at the drawstring of my wide-legged lounge pants, trying to give her a little more room to kick. She was active tonight. Too active. Braxton Hicks again. She was already giving me a run for my money. I gulped some orange juice to fill out my kick count card, followed by water, before easing myself into the rocking chair by the window. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, and my eyes danced along its surface, like an artist tracing memories, lingering where the sun kissed the waves and the horizon blurred into warmth. It felt like the water was reflecting the quiet joy I carried now, a peace I'd never known in full until this season of my life. But that moment of stillness was interrupted by the sharp little nudges pressing down on my pelvis, pulling me back to the reality of a restless baby growing inside me. And as much as I tried to stay grateful, the truth was, starting over at 38 had me more than a little shaken. Diapers, midnight feedings, school drop offs. Again? Just when I'd started to reclaim myself, I was back at the beginning, wondering if I still had what it took to endure sleepless nights and co sleeping or the dreaded labor pains I thought I'd left behind years ago. Was I really about to do this again?
I wanna take you back, but I can't. I wanna leave you behind, but I can't. It's not easy to love you, darling. It's not easy to love you, darling. I should've left you in the moment. I should've told you all the problems. It's not easy to love you, baby. It's not easy to love you, baby. It's not easy to love you, baby. You just